intensamente dentro do meu coração.
Onde existe luz não pode haver escuridão.
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 Ilumina meu caminho, me proteja contra o mal.
Ilumina meu caminho, me proteja contra o mal. Minha estrela guia que desfaz a escuridão. Minha estrela guia que desfaz a escuridão. Brilha, brilha intensamente dentro do meu coração. Brilha, brilha intensamente dentro do meu coração. Onde existe luz não pode haver escuridão. Onde existe luz não pode haver escuridão. Ilumina meu caminho, me proteja contra o mal. Ilumina meu caminho, me proteja contra o mal. Onde existe luz não pode haver escuridão. Onde existe luz não pode haver escuridão. Ilumina meu caminho, me proteja contra o mal. 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 Fazer de Deus uma realidade, fazer de Deus uma realidade, que Ele fará de ti linda verdade, que ela fará de ti linda verdade. Fazer de Deus uma realidade, fazer de Deus uma realidade, que Ele fará de ti linda verdade, que ela fará de ti linda verdade. Fazer de Deus uma realidade, fazer de Deus uma realidade, que Ele fará de ti linda verdade, que ela fará de ti linda verdade. Allow God to become a reality. Allow God to become a reality, and He will make out of you a beautiful truth, and she will make out of you a beautiful truth. Allow God to become a reality. Allow God to become a reality, and He will make out of you a beautiful truth, and she will make out of you a beautiful truth. Allow God to become a reality. Allow God to become a reality, and He will make out of you a beautiful truth, and she will make out of you a beautiful truth. Fazer de Deus uma realidade, fazer de Deus uma realidade, que Ele fará de ti linda verdade, que ela fará de ti linda verdade. Fazer de Deus uma realidade, fazer de Deus uma realidade, que Ele fará de ti linda verdade, que Ele fará de ti linda verdade. Fazer de Deus uma realidade, fazer de Deus uma realidade, que Ele fará de ti linda verdade. request while I have the guitar?
Christina says 108.
Da floresta eu recebo força para trabalhar. Da floresta eu recebo força para trabalhar. Da floresta tenho tudo, tudo, tudo Deus me dá. Da floresta tenho tudo, tudo, tudo Deus me dá. Venha primor a floresta da maneira que é feita. É primor a floresta da maneira que é feita. Com amor se harmoniza, deixa a terra satisfeita. Com amor se harmoniza, deixa a terra satisfeita. Devemos viver na terra com toda satisfação. Devemos viver na terra com toda satisfação. Se queremos ter a vida, agradecemos a nossa mãe. Se queremos ter a vida, agradecemos a nossa mãe. From the forest I receive the strength to do the work. From the forest I receive the strength to do the work. In the forest I have everything, everything God gives me. With the forest I have everything, everything God gives me. In the forest is a splendor in the way it is created. And the forest is a splendor in the way it is created. With love it is harmonized and leaves the earth satisfied. With love it is harmonized and leaves the earth satisfied. We must live on the earth with total satisfaction. We must live on the earth with total satisfaction. And if we want to have life, we give thanks to our Mother. And if we want to have life, we give thanks to our Mother. This is my little office, and it was really bland because we don't have a lot of things here. And so 2 days ago I went to a thrift store and I bought a second-hand painting and I painted over it. And I don't do many artworks or anything like this, but I'm very happy that I made that the day before yesterday. And so now the room looks okay for a video call. So yeah, this is our art gallery now.
Time here in Australia is coming to an end shortly.
So we have some people here, that's nice. Shanoon, hi Shanoon, Will, Lindsay, Laura, Lauren, Christina, Jay Carlson, wow. Yeah, so, oh, hey Danielle. Oh, lots of wonderful faces. So I thought today that nobody would show up because we didn't really tell many people. This is nice. I don't have anything interesting to say today, any topics or anything like that. The songs, they inspire me to say something about those songs. And also we have some questions. Some people wrote some questions to us and things like this. So I thought I would just start there and see what happens. And if we can kind of dialogue as well, if anybody wants to chat or if anybody has a question. I thought that might be a nice change of things rather than me just talking, giving unsolicited advice about random things in the universe. But the first thing, just as we were singing these last two songs,
I've been seeing. I see a lot of people in my work all around the world. I see a lot of clients when I'm here in Australia for therapy works and counseling and things like this. And I just got off a call right before this call with a client who's coming out next week, and I've been seeing her for the last 3 years, and she was just talking about how sometimes we are in between worlds, or she feels like she's in between worlds. She works with autistic children, helping them communicate. It's an incredible work that she's found herself in. But being able to communicate and help them communicate and be there as an advocate for them, or non-verbal autism, and as an advocate for them in their life, to help them learn to communicate with structures and symbols and alphabets and things like this, that sometimes it can feel alienating from the rest of the world who doesn't really understand that. And not only that, but the last 3 years since she's been coming to me for therapy, she started having a sort of more and more a spiritual opening and inkling, where things in her life started changing shape. As probably many of us here have had certain, we can relate to in a certain way. We start to have a certain trajectory or a reorientation towards something a little bit more deeper than the superficial. We have a big experience and we realize that there's a lot more to life, there's a lot more to us, there's a lot more to all of this than what is just on the surface. And as those sort of cracks in the shell sort of break and start to let in openings, the things that fall away are sometimes parts of our personality, parts of our identity, parts of just the familiar places in our life that we inhabit and co-inhabit. And quite often when somebody is serious about a spiritual endeavor or a path like that, we can expect that in the beginning it might seem like roses and hummingbirds and beautiful flowers and great openings and light and meaning making, things making sense and falling into place and saying aha, these beautiful aha moments. And then we can also experience some forms of sacrifice where things have to die, things have to fall away. We think that quite often it is some beautiful and romantic process to be, a spiritual person, and quite often some people they take that and they run with it and they get a whole new wardrobe of things and a whole new friends of things, and they go to hang out at new places and things like this, and it becomes a different way of dressing the personality, a kind of a spiritual materialist sort of thing, which, however, if we're really serious about the thing, even those things fall away. It's not about the clothes that we wear, it's not even about the songs that we sing or the ceremonies we go to or the style or the technique of the meditation that we have. It's something very, very real and raw and close to home that is completely personal for each one of us. And at the same time as it being completely personal for each one of us, it's completely impersonal to us. It's in us and it's beyond us, but it's not outside of us. And so this woman in particular, and many people that I work with, have what I would say is a kind of a religious trauma, because we grew up, some people, they grew up with sort of things handed down to them, and sometimes it wasn't handed down gracefully, it was kind of shoved upon them and told how to do it and told what it is and where it is, and if they don't do it, that they're very bad people, and they would go to very bad places if they didn't do this or look in this way, and if they looked in any other places, they would surely be damned. And many of us from modern societies and age groups of varying orders, we've brushed up against these sorts of dogmatic attitudes, which can leave a bad taste in our mouth, and because they were impressed upon us with a certain degree of fear, a certain degree of misunderstanding in some places. Because I believe that many of these traditions, or the places that the wisdom teachings come from, we could say they're divinely inspired, which leaves a lot open to misinterpretation. One image that comes to mind, which I like, it's we could choose any master really, but the one that really affects our modern age and our modern day is Jesus. And you have the disciples around him, and there's those disciples. There's somebody who was having a divinely transpired event, and the disciples around him, they got the direct transmission from that being, from that person. And then that direct transmission that is direct, that is embodied, that is revelatory, that changes the perception, it changes the way that you see the world, because you have a degree of awakening that wakens you up from the way that you were seeing things before. It's no longer a dream. Like, you no longer see the way things that were once perceived that way, or what were perceived as on the surface level, the way that the rest of the world kind of sees things and trudges on thinking this is all it is. And so when we have a direct transmission or a direct meeting of these divinely inspired presences, that fundamentally transforms the being. But then the problem is that we have this trickle-down effect from that inner circle, from those living waters. We have trickle-down effects in all sorts of different traditions and wisdoms. But the trickle-down effect, it's like a game of telephone. And then by the time it gets to institutions and things like this, it's being used in human-centric ways rather than divinely inspired ways, because we seek to co-opt things for our own means. But on the surface level of the world, we don't really see the place that it comes from, because we have a human mind, we have a human brain. It's geared towards survival and instinctual processes at play. That is kind of a Darwinian thing, like survival of the fittest, and who's the toughest. So it breeds this place of competition and capitalism, and one over another, and somebody has to lose for me to win. But if we look in nature, and this idea is kind of an outdated idea. We don't really subscribe to that idea anymore, because when we look at nature and plants, forests, mycelial networks, some animal groupings and things like this, we see that cooperation really plays a big part, perhaps a bigger part than competition, and that plants will give part of their nourishment away to other plants. They'll sacrifice a part of themselves for another plant to survive. They will make way for the sunlight to come so that the plants around them can be helped. And there's a cooperation between species even in the flora and fauna life. And even if we look at humanity and human beings, we think that it's all greed and corruption and hatred and ignorance and all of these horrible things when we look out in the world. But we could also look back and say that cooperation has played a huge part, that community and belonging and uplifting one another and sharing has played a huge part, that we wouldn't be where we are today if we didn't learn to cooperate. Human beings are largely where we are today because we were able to cooperate with schemes of hunting and gathering and sharing food and sharing resources within community, so that those communities grew and grew and grew, and we could come out of trees and we were no longer prey, but now we were kind of top of the food chain in some regards. And so when we look at the surface level, we see corruption and competition and comparison. But if we look a little bit deeper, we see that cooperation and fairness and justice, they are actually a kind of a grounding factor of nature. And so this trickle-down effect from hearing the living words, the living transmission of the teachings that were divinely inspired, as it goes down, it starts to change, it starts to morph, and we get kind of this watered down effect where we hear something that has not been divinely inspired, but has come from the mind of a human being who has their own self-interest, their own likes, dislikes, and preferences that get in the way, and their own worldview as well, which is very, very fascinating. Like if we were to hear this kind of story, but we were raised in India, we would think very differently of it. We'd think, oh, this person, he realized he was the son of God. Yeah, great. As many of the masters have done, and they have all told us that we are all the children of that air, and we are all capable of realizing it. How wonderful. But then here in the West, sometimes you hear stories like this, and a lot of people, they say, no, he was the only one and no one else can. And it kind of, we start with this debilitation in the beginning. We start with we sidetrack ourselves from the beginning. We're handicapped right from the get-go because he can, but we can't. And this kind of it's the disaster of the Western world that we put divinity somewhere else outside of us, and we've pedestalized it in certain institutions and in certain people that has made it far away from ourselves. Yet if we go back and listen to pretty much all of those teachers, they'll say the opposite thing. They'll say it's everywhere, in everyone, in everything, and if you can't find it here and now, you're looking in the wrong place. And so our task is really to look where it is, and it's not out there, it's just right here. So I'm going roundabout. I was mentioning the client I was talking to this morning, and she had some of this religious trauma, and she said that she said she has lots of guides, lots of resources, lots of spiritual things. Because I said, where do you resource yourself? Where do you lean to? What holds you? Kind of what I didn't say this question, but the question is kind of like, what do you pray to when nothing else works? Like, what is your deepest ground, your deepest heart of hearts thing that's true for you? And she said she has all of these different things, all of these guides, and all of these places, all of these references, all of these ideas. But she says, and then there is a deeper source of it all, but I can't go there because of my religious upbringing. I can't go there. And then she would go on and talk about her aggression or just not wanting to ascribe to the things that she was taught that she grew up with, which I ascribe to kind of a religious trauma. And she said something. She said the word God. She said, I effing hate that word. It makes me want to pull my skin off. So I said, we don't have to use that word. And I'm saying all this just so I can say that. You don't have to use that word. But if you find other words that work, and they start to work, after a time you come back and that word's fine. But if you don't like any word, you find a word that is meaningful to you, because what she termed it, which I really like, she said there's an internal source. There's a source of it all. A source, S-O-U-R-C-E. And this word is so beautiful. This is that there's a wellspring, there's a fountain. Everything has a source. Everything has a birth. Everything comes from somewhere. And this is one of the most important contemplative practices for a spiritual life, is to put your mind on that source, put your heart on that source, put your contemplation, put your thoughts on that source. You go all the way back there. You say, it all comes from somewhere. And then you count all of the things that you can find that come from somewhere. You try and find something that doesn't come from there. Try to find something that has a different source other than the source of all things. And so very quickly in our contemplation, if we just decide that there is a source of the universe, maybe it was a big bang, maybe it was some other occurrence, maybe there are multi-dimensions spilling out and different realities all over the place. But perhaps, even so, just as many stars as there are in the sky, they all have a source. There is a source to all things. And everything is springing from somewhere, and we'll go back to that place. And then when we look at the timeline and the trajectory that gets us here, and we say, well, to get to that source, I have to step out of time. And then I say, well, to step out of time and get to that source, it means that it's timeless. And if it's timeless, it means that it exists in all times. If it exists in all times, then I don't have to go back or forward to get there, because it's right here. Because it's not subject to time. Time is subject to it. Yeah. And so then if I really contemplate this source, then I step out of this trickle-down effect where we find competition, comparison, co-opting of resources and greed and hate and fear and war and all of these things. Because to get to that source, really, deeply, truly, in my own self, as my own self, I have to go beyond the human. I think where a lot of people go wrong is they keep looking through the human mind, their human personality, because they've put God outside of them, because they've put that source outside of them, because they say some things came from that source, but not all things. They say that there is a source, but it's over there, and we're over here, and we're separate from it. And this whole thing, it just creates such a confusion, because if we are separate from it, then what happens here? It's not the gospel, really. No, the gospel in the Christian terminology, gospel means the good news. So the good news, I think, what they were really trying to say, the good news is that God is one in all things, the source of all things, and that means you come from it and you're going back there. So wash yourself clean here and remember that in all things. Remember your divinity. It's similar in many traditions. Here I just use that tradition because we're used to it in the Western world. But what it means is we have to, in some way, shape or form, some of us more than others, we have to get the bad taste out of our mouth of what human minds and human-centric ideas, ideals and opinions have placed on divinity and on spirituality. And so to get there, you also have to look beyond your own life. And you know, if you look out at the world, you know, we see through human eyes. You know, if we look out and it's a rainy day, you might think that's good or you might think that's bad, depending on your plans. But it's not good or bad. If you go out into the world, you might, if you're in your car and somebody cuts you off or becomes aggressive to you, you might have a reaction, a recoil, a squeezing, and you feel the blood rush through your body and the cortisol spike, and you have a reaction, because that's not a good thing. You don't want that. You don't want conflict. You know, if somebody's being aggressive to you, that doesn't feel good. But if there was like a bird flying through the sky and another bird cut him off, I don't know if he would have a spike of cortisol. If there was a child in the back seat and the car cut you off and the child was just there looking at the ceiling, he didn't know anything, he wouldn't have any reaction. And so the reactions that we have, they're really dependent upon our beliefs that have formed the way that we shape and see the world. And of course they help to protect us and they serve us and they help us get along with others and perform our duties in society. But in terms of the spiritual search and what we're doing in terms of the path of awakening, of realization, of all of these beautiful things, we have to look beyond our own human mind. We have to look beyond our own reactions, our own perceptions, because they all have a certain color, a certain shade to it. It's like here, there's a certain color, it forms a certain shape, but under it the canvas is just blank. The canvas isn't really perturbed by what colors I put on there. But when I start to see through the lens of the colors, then the world's shaded. You know, seeing through rose-colored glasses, the world will look rose-colored, but it's not. We just need to take our glasses off. And so quite often spirituality, we have these ups and downs on our path. But if we remember that there is a source that is clear like that canvas, and there is a lens that is clear, or there is a possibility to take the glasses off entirely, what we find largely in deep spiritual experiences where things have changed and shifted is it gives us somewhat of a bird's eye view. It's like we have our little life and our little mind and our little ideas and our little beliefs and our upbringing and all of these things, our ideas of the past, our ideas of the future, and we're caught in all of it. It's like the whole world is caught in a web, and it's very sticky, and we get stuck in that web, and the only way to keep going in that web is to keep sticking to the next thing and sticking to the next thing and sticking to the next thing. For me, spirituality is becoming unstuck. It's seeing the whole web. You know? And so when we're stuck in our frames of mind, this zooming out, this bird's eye view, which people get from contemplative practice, from prayer, from meditation, from psychedelic therapy, from ceremony. Sometimes they're experiences, and all of a sudden the walls lift, the doors open, and you see everything much wider, and it doesn't have a body. It doesn't have a mind, it doesn't have a thought, but it has a home, it has a belonging, it has a place. It's timeless. It goes into that timeless place. And then from that bird's eye view, when we come back, things change. The perspective changes. There's more space, there's more room. Now the person cuts us off, and instead of this immediate reaction, this spike in our body, you say, oh, that person did that. And perhaps more and more and more we have less reaction. Perhaps more we have less judgment, because largely our reactions and our judgments on others are what separates us from others, what creates a huge divide between us and others. So we're kind of bridging this gap by looking at those things. One thing that I like to consider is that when we have a little more awareness in our life, it all begins with our awareness. When we have a little bit more awareness in our life, perhaps we become less judgmental and less reactive, or perhaps it seems sometimes like we are more judgmental and reactive to certain things. And it's usually the same degree. Sometimes it seems like there's more suffering, but it's usually the same degree. The only difference is that now we're more aware of it. So when we are suffering but we're not aware of it, it's just kind of like we're trudging through the mud of life. And then all of a sudden something wakes up in us. You find yourself in that mud, but you've tasted the dry grass. You go, I gotta get out of these shoes. Why is it happening again? Can't believe I'm here. But the suffering's just more illuminated. And so there's an aphorism that I like, that I put in my mind, and it's been with me for a few years. I really like it. You could borrow it. It's not a nice one. Sometimes we want pretty words and platitudes, but generally speaking, the good spiritual nourishment, at first we don't really like it, because it's not always positive psychology. Let's put it that way. And oh, where? Where? Scared the shit out of me. Let's make sure he stays. Oh my God. Sorry, I just had an update from my side note. We have it's spring here in Australia, and so there are some snakes coming out. We had a very big snake down in the shed, and we had to pull the shed down, and I was so sad because I really loved this snake. We named him, me and the kids named him Gus, and he was so beautiful, and then he disappeared. She said she just found him, so I can't wait to go and meet him again. He was like a really big python, like quite thick, probably like 10 foot long. And I love them. I think they're so beautiful. But Haley doesn't love them. So the aphorism that I was going to give you is it's a teaching. It says to turn the volume up on your complaints. Sometimes that's what happens when we become more aware. But here it's a phrase, that a teaching that points us to the recognition of that and tells us to do it. Why do you want to turn the volume up on your complaints? Why do you want to turn the volume up on your judgments? Turn the volume up on your suffering? Why would you want to turn the volume up? It's like we all have this complaining voice in our head. It doesn't get us anywhere. It doesn't help us. It just nags and kind of puts us in these downward spirals, and we start complaining about one thing, and then we have many, many more things to complain about. It's kind of like this door that opens and leads to many, many more doors. It's kind of like a voice that tempts us. It's like temptation. It says, oh, what about this? Isn't this terrible? And then you start following that, and then a lot of things are terrible. And you just look around at our friends and our family, and a lot of people are listening to that voice all of the time, and they don't know that they're listening to that voice because they think that voice is their voice. The judging voice, the complaining voice, the comparing voice. So if you were to turn the volume up on your complaints, why would you want to do that? If you're becoming more aware, you want to turn the volume up on your complaints so you can hear them loud and clear. So this is what I tell myself. I catch my complaints and my judgment all the time, and we all have them. I've got it. I think I've got it more than others, but maybe it's just because I'm turning the volume up on it all the time. So when I hear my complaints, I say, okay, and I'll turn the volume up on that. Why? Because I don't want to live with it anymore. I want to hear it. Because if I don't want to hear it and I just drown it out, I turn it down and I pretend like it's not there, or I ignore it, it's still there. But if I turn the volume up, then I really get to know it. Then I really get to put it there, and I get to look at it. I get to listen to it. And I get to say, is that really what you want to say to me? Is that really true? Whereas if I don't turn the volume up, I just say, not right now. Oh God, am I really complaining again? Or I just go with it and I just talk to myself, but I'm kind of stuck in it because I think that it's me and I'm subscribing to it. So if that sounds good to you. If it doesn't, try to forget that I said that. But later on, you'll be complaining, and there'll be a voice in your head that says, "Turn the volume up," and you say, "Oh gosh." So sometimes the spiritual path and having awareness, just generally in our life, it's a blessing and a curse, because we see more of the things that we don't want to see anymore. But the lesson's not pushing it away. The lesson's listening to it. The lesson's being aware of it. When you are aware and things come up that you don't want, you know what you do? You keep being aware. So you listen, you bring them. And so this person, she said, the word God makes her crawl out of her skin. She wants to pull her skin off. But to me, that's the same word as the source, and it's just a common word, and I don't put it with religious brackets around it. For me, God is, or when I say the word God or sing the word God, it's not a creator God, and this can be confusing for people. To say that God is the creator implies a creation outside of the creator, and I don't believe in a separation. I don't see a separation. I don't know any separation. To me, God is immanent, intimate, immediate, and infinite. In the East, they say is immanent and transcendent. Means it's immediately within every single thing, because there is only God. If there's only God, then there's nothing else. So there's only God. So every single thing is a part of it, but it's also transcendent, because it's also the other side of it. It's being and non-being. It's existence and non-existence. But if you really, really get down and deep into that, it's none of those things at all, because all those things are just words and concepts. And what the words and concepts point to is something completely beyond words and concepts. So to me, it is a presence that goes way beyond our humanistic ideas of things. Because we look out in the world and we say, well, where is that presence? The Christians say God is good, but you look out in the world and you say, I don't know. Because the people that believe that don't always seem to be behaving that or listening to that or doing that. But God is beyond good and evil, because good and evil are human conceptions. And what this means, because sometimes people have trouble here, but we need to understand and hold two truths. Two truths. This comes from the Buddha, and he got it from what do you call it? Sanatana Dharma, like the Hinduism of the time, the Advaitic traditions, the Vedantic traditions. And the two truths are the absolute and the relative. And so we have to reconcile these. Because my friend, the client, earlier, she said, it feels like I'm living in these two worlds. It's a common question that comes up a lot with people that I work with. How do I reconcile my spirituality with my modern life? And I think there's this bridging that needs to happen, where we can kind of have a harmony, like a musical harmony or a union within ourselves, where that voice isn't just some voice over here. We can become integrated in ourselves. We can become coherent, where then we can kind of sit, we can relax, we can enjoy the teachings of spaciousness and stillness and silence and all those good things. A couple of the questions that I had here, I'm just going to look at those. One from Jen is talking about those two voices, actually, specifically, so I was surprised that it came up in my call earlier. She's asking about the two voices and what practices or focus might foster the unification of our inner dichotomy, the joining of the two voices and the acceptance of them, and also the surrender of them. How to unify this inner dichotomy and the joining of these two forces, the acceptance and the surrender of them. And can we relate to that? We have two voices that seem to be at opposition with each other inside of us, sometimes at some parts of our life. One complaining, one with gratitude, one confused, one with clarity. One with a spiritual inkling, one with a complete doubt about the world and where it's going. So Jen, how to reconcile these two voices. Is there, what is it that recognizes these two voices? What is it that wants to reconcile them? So if you have these two voices and then something a third voice comes in and says, there are two voices here and they seem to be driving me mad and they seem to be in opposition. Isn't that interesting? What is that third voice? And the third voice says, I want to reconcile them. I want them to be unified. I want them to be accepted and surrendered. I want to be integrated as a whole. What is that third voice? So if we're looking at kind of parts work, we have this third voice. What is that third voice that is aware of the opposites? If we spend time in that third voice, perhaps if you speak to that third voice or rest in that third voice, perhaps that is already a place of more unification or reconciliation, because it's aware of those two voices. It's not succumbing to this one or that one. It's not wrapped up in this one or that one. It's, step back, it's objective. It's looking at them objectively. Sometimes when we are looking at parts of the mind or the stories and trying to find ways around it, the voice that comes online that wants to find a solution usually is part of the solution, because it's untied from it, it's untangled from it. And so if you stay in that untied and untangled place, you see that, here are these two voices, here I am, I'm aware. How can I unify them? Well, when I'm here aware, I'm unified, and those voices can meet me here. So if you have, I also did a class yesterday for a teacher training group in the States, and this other thing that came up is you listen to the thoughts in your head. When there's two opposing voices, when there is any voice at all, you listen to it. Listening is one of the fundamental practices for me and in my school. And listening has many implications. I'm not going to go into that today, but we'll make another call about that soon. So you say you have a voice in your head, which we all do, whether it's a positive self-talk or negative self-talk. You look and you listen. And when you look and you listen, how does it sound? If you become curious, because usually when we have things inside of us, voices inside of us, or narratives that we don't want them, and we push them away. And when we push them away, they don't really go anywhere. And for some of us, maybe these narratives or voices have been there for a long time. And we don't want to live with them anymore, so we try to get rid of them. But if we look closely, it says, oh, we are living with them. So my pushing away doesn't really help. So if I have to live with them, then may as well hear what they have to say. And so if we take on the awareness of listening, the presence of listening, it's kind of like a healing presence. And then you have these narratives, these voices, and then you go and you just sit with them. This is a part of contemplative practice, just to sit with what is. You sit with it and you listen to it. If you have a voice in your head and you listen to it, you say, well, what tonality does it use? What's the tone of voice? What is the verbiage? What is the language? What words does it use? Does it have an accent? How does it speak to me? And if you look in that sort of way and ask those sorts of questions, it's very simple. But that immediate looking in that certain style of way, it immediately separates you from the voice. Because here's the voice driving you crazy. Blah, 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 blah. I wish I could stop speaking to myself. I wish it would just be quiet. Sometimes it's me thinking. Other times it's me having a conversation. Other times I want to turn it off. Other times I get so excited and stay up all night because it's giving me such juicy details about things. And then all of a sudden, you turn around and you look directly at it. You look directly at it. What is looking is not it. What you are that is looking is aware, it is presence, and it's not it. And now all of a sudden, you're not it. So you've separated yourself from it. You've given yourself space, and in that space, you're free of it. In that space of freedom, being free of it, and now listening to it, now looking at it, now not pushing it away, you give it a chance to integrate, to soften. Just like, the children that want our attention. You finally give them their attention, they relax. They put down their guard. They just wanted a hug. They just wanted their hand held. They just wanted to know that you knew that they were there. So when we push things away, It's not the easy path. But it's very counterintuitive actually sometimes to turn and face things and to listen to things and to lend our ear. But if we're following a path of presence, then that presence doesn't stop with some things over others. There are certain things that we encounter in our life. Maybe you encounter a beautiful, beautiful, robust presence inside of yourself, this vibrational thing, this glorious love and light, and it's so beautiful, and your eyes soften and your heart opens, and you just have a sweet smile for everyone that you meet because you're in such a blissful haven of your spiritual experience. And then sooner or later that starts to fall apart, and then at some point you start to rub into all these old judgments, all these old complaints again. And every time we do, we recoil a little bit. We hit our edges. It's like we hit these experiences where our edges float away and we're very expanded, but then the edges come back, the walls come back. There's a little bit of friction to that. So when the path is finding those edges, when we find presence and then we hit an edge or we hit a wall, we hit a reaction, that person cuts us off and we go, we contract, we recoil. Then where is the presence there? It's gone. We missed it. We lost it. We're back into the reactive place and the judgmental place. And every time we're in that reactive or judgmental place, we forego the presence. There's a beautiful thing there where we can have presence, or we can be in presence, I should say. And those reactive, managing, competing, judging places, and the person cuts us off, we can feel the wave of the body. We can feel the reaction. We can feel the judgment. We can see it all. And presence is still there. Those things don't have to leave for presence to be there. But when we're fully in those things, we lose presence. But we don't have to lose presence, and we don't have to lose those things. But if we are present and those things arise, the reaction changes a little bit. And a lot of what we see, if we are doing some sort of practice, if we are paying attention in our mind and in our life, then those reactions, they start to shift, they start to change, they start to meet us in different ways. And it's not just an indifference to life, it's like we can have these really deep spiritual experiences, and then life is happening, and in a timeless expanse of things, everything is arising, living, dying, decaying all of the time, and we can zoom right out and see the whole big picture and say, well, then why should I care? Who cares? Spirituality can be really cold if the realization is just intellectual, if it hasn't really hit the heart. You say, who cares? I care. I care a lot. Do you care? I think you care. So spirituality, when it, or realization, when it lands shallow, the world is cold and indifferent. You have some realization, you've realized some really wonderful things, it's philosophical, you know something, you want to, but it loses the cooperative response. It doesn't uplift, it doesn't empower, it doesn't radiate. But all spiritual teachings are seeds. A seed that doesn't propagate and give more fruit is not a real teaching. And so you say, who cares? But then you say, no, I care. I do care. I do care what happens here in this time, even if this time is just a small blimp in the infinite eye. And when you say, I do care, where does that hit? What do you feel? That's the heart. And when the heart opens there in that part of the spiritual practice, this is a very, very necessary thing. But for the heart to open, it doesn't mean that there's an absence of our reactions and our judgments. There's a meeting of them, and an allowing of them. And actually, that sounds like your second question, Jen. Can you please speak to what Thomas Merton calls the hidden wholeness, the wisdom, the mother of all, or the divine feminine? So I love Thomas Merton, but I haven't read that extensively. So his terminology, not so sure. But hidden wholeness and the mother of all, wisdom, divine feminine, I can talk on those things, and hopefully it's complementary to what Thomas Merton said. Because when we encounter that place in the heart that is warm, it's a motherly love. It's a parental love. You know? And if we haven't grown up enough in ourself or our life or our spirituality to be able to foster a home for ourselves and for others, then it's still growing, it's still maturing. And many of us, you know, we're looking for a home, we're looking for parents, we're looking for a family, we're looking for a community inside of ourselves, in our spiritual life. Perhaps we have some things we say, okay, now where do I put things? You know, I've kind of been in a tent, I've been in a hotel here, like I've been over there on the side of the street, and now I've entered this new place in this new dimension. Like I've got to get to know the area. Like, you know, where are the doors? Where are the windows? Where do I put the furniture? Like, how do I live in this place? And then the maturation process, I think the heart can open wide enough that it has a capacity. It has a capacity to hold the difficult things. It has a capacity to hold others. And then we kind of come into real compassion. We come into you know, people who work as therapists, as counselors, people who work as spiritual directors and hospice care and general mothers and fathers everywhere. Anyone who holds other beings in their work and in their life has encountered a capacity that is strangely beyond them, but strangely them at the same time. And so to be able to hold suffering, to be able to hold burden in this life is a profound, mysterious quality of the heart. And it's a warm quality. By warm, I mean it's uplifted and it's radiant. And this uplifted, radiant, warm quality of the heart, it's I use the word love, the big capital L, love. And that when we're in true relationship with that, it's not just us, it's not personal, it's impersonal love. Because we can never really grapple with unconditional love, because we're always looking through our conditions. All of our conditions, our makeup as a human being, we can't see beyond our conditions to actually even fathom what unconditionality means. Because to come to unconditionality, we need to put down all of our conditions. And the only way we do that is by being that. And that's why the awakening or realization or experience of love, it has to be direct. And when it's direct, there's no you to say, oh, that's it. It's just it pervades all. But it kind of holds us. And it awakens something in our heart. So you said Thomas Merton called it the hidden wholeness. I'd call that a hidden wholeness. It's like the womb of the world. It's like when we stop looking through our human eyes and our human mind, we see that there is one thing here. And the strange thing is that we perceive ourselves as different than it. If everything has a one source, then that source is not just in everything, it is everything. That includes us. There's nothing left out of the equation. So why do we have this separation? Why do we have this division? What does it separate us from? What does it divide us from? What is the truth of it all? To get to the truth of it all, we have to go beyond our opinions and ideas of what is wrong, what is right. Because it's not a human game anymore. Now we're looking at a universal play. And to look at that universal play, zooming right out to the timeless again. When I was in my 20s, from probably like the age of 23 to 30 maybe, I was extremely devoted to the Divine Mother in the universal sense, but I stumbled into that from Eastern contemplative traditions, mostly from around that time in my early 20s. I was a part of the Self-Realization Fellowship and following the teachings of Paramahamsa Yogananda, and it wasn't something that I expected. It's still there for me, but back then it wasn't something that I expected, to have a practice of devotion and a practice of worship toward a figure, toward a being, toward a symbolic essence in the universe. Because also growing up in a Western environment, many people associate God as being a male, and so the song said, allow God allow God to become a reality, and He will make of you a beautiful truth. And then we add in, allow God to become a reality, and she will make out of you a beautiful truth, because truly, it's neither. You know, we're so mistaken if we think God is a man or a woman. It's that which is. It is the all that is. God is in everything, because God is everything, and in that God is. I-S, capital I-S. It is the isness of all things. It is the being and the presence of all things, which is a sort of a pregnant emergence of all things. I once had a contemplation, and it said, God says, all things are my child, including myself. So God gave me this paradox, that everything is my child, including me. So God is the child of God somehow. Because God gives birth to all things, then we have the concept of God. So somehow that concept is also birth of that same source, which is beyond concept. But I digress. This womb of the world, this womb of the universe, this pregnant spring, this force, it has many qualities, and we can ascribe qualities of masculine qualities or feminine qualities, and it can go in all sorts of ways. And for whatever reason, at that time in my life, my early 20s, I stumbled into this. And it wasn't just like, oh, I'm going to decide to do that because that feels right to me. That's my personality type. So I should look at that, and I should pull a card and do that and get this crystal and go there. It was like I encountered some mantras and some writings of the Divine Mother, and then I was feverishly kind of possessed. You know, all my thoughts, all my waking day, it's where I started writing poetry. And I have like 5 books of poetry, but I have unpublished books, which are all just these devotional poems to the Divine Mother, because that was all I wanted, all I could do. It wasn't what I wanted to do. I would just have a pen, and I would sing praises that were really beautiful to me, personal to me. It became my spiritual practice. And that's how I found in my 20s the path of devotion, the path of bhakti, which even Ramana Maharshi says that the path of bhakti, or devotion, is one of the highest means, or the quickest means to liberation. I wasn't aware of all of this. I just knew that was a thing, and then I started finding these teachings who explained and expounded on how devotion as a simple practice can be really revelatory. I didn't choose something to be devoted to. It just kind of emerged in me. It opened in my heart. And the way that I saw the Divine Mother was the Mother of God and the Mother of the universe, and this motherly aspect that has a nurturing quality and also a wrathful quality. You know, just like Mother Nature can bring storms and tides and cyclones, and also spring and flowers and past seeds and tranquil waves and all of these beautiful sunsets on the horizon. But again, we're just looking at the earth, and we keep zooming out. We zoom right out, and we see that everything has a source. You know? Everything is born of somewhere. So everything born of somewhere has reference to a mother. Even if our mother in this life wasn't the caring, nurturing being that we expected or needed. You know, I have a lot of friends who don't have that, and a lot of people have scars with that. And so then we look beyond that. Who was the mother I had before my birth? Who is the mother of God? And here we're just talking anthropomorphically. You know, we're putting names and faces to things. But if we do that, we can come to really sensible things inside of us that really point us in some beautiful way. So who were my parents before my parents? And sometimes here in this life, our parents fail us. And I believe that's some kind of teaching in the psychology world, is that your parents should fail you, and they're designed to fail you so that you can carry on in different ways and learn from their mistakes, something like that perhaps. But our worldly parents, sometimes, quite often, they fail us, or we surpass them or exceed them, or become failures because of them, or because of the way that we thought we were to become, because of what we hold grudges and resentments and all these sorts of things. And then there's this turning, and there's a lot of religious thought is saying, oh, maybe you have an eternal mother, an eternal father, and we ascribe a parental figure to it because we are children, because we don't know what we're doing. At some stage along the way, we become parents to our own self. We become parents inside of ourselves. We don't need the big mother or father anymore. because now it moves in us. We're kind of unifying these things as we go. Because to say devotion and to say Divine Mother, it's still implying this dualism. But the reality of its implication is a non-dual reality where I am like a wave and I am absorbed into the ocean of that being. But a good way to come to it is to turn around and face a parental nature, because the child in us could always use that. And sometimes we can come to the rise and aid of our inner child to be a parent to ourselves. And sometimes we need to look inside to our internal source and see where it all springs from and say, hold me. And this goes for every age. I know a lot of people that come to this place when they're close to death or in old age, and they find this place and they turn into a child again because they found a source inside of them that holds them like a parent, that holds them unconditionally in a way that no human being could. So what is it like to be held by an unconditional love inside of yourself? And the thing about that, which I think I said last time, is it's not an external force. We get confused with gods and goddesses and beings and guides and all of these things because we are resorting to external forces. But the true thing to lean on inside of us is not an external force, it's an internal source. And again, that is not something, it's something very personal for each one of us, but at the same time it's impersonal. But it's something that you don't have to let anyone outside of you design or define the name that you use or the way that you do it. Because as I said in the beginning, there's that inner circle where people are getting the direct transmission, and then there's the living divine inspiration, and then there's the trickle down telephone effect where we're getting other things, and then people get religious trauma because somebody taught them how to pray, somebody taught them how to go on their knees, someone taught them how to bring their hands together, somebody taught them why they should do that because they are bad, or because they have sinned, or because they are impure from the get-go. If we go right back to that source, it wasn't like that at all. If we go right back to other sources, it wasn't like that at all. They said the source is within, and if you know that, then you'll know it in all things. So anytime we look outside for that source, we fumble, we fall, we get critical, we get skeptical, we lose our footing, we become jaded, all the sorts of things, because we've placed the power outside of ourselves. So it's a very personal thing to each one, and yet it's impersonal because it takes us beyond ourselves. No one can do it for you, but it's inside of you and not outside of you, and you can use whatever name you want. So if it's the Divine Mother, go for that. If it's God, use that. If it's Source, use that. If it's just awareness, if it's just presence, if it's pure being, if it is the isness, use that. But the best way, the best thing to utilize is no words at all. You just go inside in silence. Funnily, I didn't have anything to say. I didn't know what I was going to say, but there was a couple of questions woven in there, and some reflections, and some things were said. I'm feeling complete. Is there any questions from anyone while we're here? If there is, you can put it in the chat room, but for right now, since we have a bunch of us online, I just want to do that. So wherever you are, we'll just take 5 minutes. I mean, we all have 5 minutes. If you don't have 5 minutes, get 5 minutes. And we're going to go into that internal source, and we're not going to use any words. We're just going to be there in silence, and all of the words that come, you just keep bringing it back into that source. If there's judgment, if there's doubt, if there's a voice that says you're doing it wrong or anything like that, you just bring it back there. We're going to go into that internal source and become very, very present in our own being. And just let the breath soften, let the belly relax, let the jaw, the brow soften. when we sit like this, we allow everything to be as it is. But the truth is, there is nothing that we allow, because everything is already as it is. And when we catch up to it as it is, we encounter it where it is. We are present with it, and in our presence, we find that there is only presence in it. We spoke about the timeless moment that doesn't have a past or a future. We say it's right here and now, unfolding. So here, just make a moment to let presence enter and radiate through your mind, through your heart, and through your body. Let presence be a purifying force in your life. And let it be a type of compass, a type of compass that pulls you out of yourself towards the truth of yourself. Thank you for joining me today, my friends. Really very honored to be here and to have the opportunity. Sending you lots of blessings wherever you are, and hope these seeds are landing in your garden in such beautiful ways that you can enjoy their fruits. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful day or evening, wherever you are. And I guess we'll do it again in about a month's time. If anyone has any song requests or topics or questions, feel free to send them. I like to do things on the fly, so it's all welcome. And there's many directions we can go in. But that's all for today. So